Greetings. Let's see. It's oh my gosh, April 30th, 2017. When did that happen? Well, it's going to be well, we'll see we'll see how far I can get today on this gorgeous morning in Southern California desert at Casa de Aloha. Rather serious mood today. That being said, we'll still have some laughs. Let's just sit for a moment. That's the invitation. And open your feet up and pull the earth energy up, and just quench yourself with that sustainable energy that's ever present, and pull it up really into your physical body and wash out anything that is blocking you from accepting your life as it is at this moment. Like a reverse waterfall up all the way to your sixth, and just flush out. Do that a few times. Notice any places where you say no, because you can feel something starting to loosen up. And that's not a problem, but it's important for you to notice that, because it's definitely connected to some things that are in your subconscious. Now, this is a rather complex Sunday salutation, but whatever. I felt called to discuss this because this last week, sitting with students and folk, it just wrenches my heart to see how people struggle with this idea of manifestation, and get so upset when they don't get what they want. And I feel for them deeply, because there is so much misunderstanding. Excuse me, I gotta put the lip jazz on. Thank you. There's such a misunderstanding about what this manifestation business is. So as you notice with the nose, that's connecting you to your subconscious. So I'm going to start here. There's about 3 things I want to address and help you weave them through and through, so when we're done, you have actually something to work on this week and onward. I want you to, if you have a piece of paper around, or go get one, and I want you to draw the thing that you want, that you really say you want. Okay? And if you can't draw, don't worry about it, just draw it. And I want you to notice the first thing that shows up in your consciousness when you see that. Is there a sinking feeling? Is there an exciting feeling? Is there a haunting feeling? In other words, if the thing is not manifesting, then that points directly to something in your own subconscious and maybe conscious that's not allowing it. And it's very important that you address this not punitively to yourself, because this is part of the practice, part of meditation, part of all these practices are to excavate the things from our subconscious and unconscious certain times that are blocking us from creating or from being able to manifest what we say we desire. Now, some of those things, as you're looking at the thing you say you want, they may not be apparent, and you may like, how the fuck do I find this out? If you start paying attention, this is why I want you to really look at this all week, whatever this thing is you say you want, start noticing, start asking in a prayer, show me what I need to see that's not allowing me to have this thing come to me. And you may butt up against past life consequences or things that have been accumulated over time that need to be addressed before the thing you say you want can come. Also, our desires often always direct to places in our own evolution that haven't sometimes been cultivated. So there's no contradiction here. The desires, you can't get away from desire. Desire, when Buddha says desire is the cause of suffering, that's also true. But we have to work with the desires consciously to understand what he's actually saying there. So you can't get away from desire. But what we're talking about is, how do you have a desire? Because the desire is your soul taking you towards the direction that it needs to go in order to grow. But just because that desire is not fulfilled doesn't mean there's a problem with the desire. It just means that there's something in your lower levels of consciousness, I don't mean less than, that are not yet ready, potentially, for that thing to come. Now, let's put that aside. Last week, or almost 2 weeks ago, I taught a class with my beloved dear comrade, Ruben, in San Francisco on death. I'm going to continue that because this is very important. This is a class that I could teach every week. Having a relationship with death can actually help sober you up around a lot of this unconscious, subconscious things that are blocking things from manifesting. And having a direct relationship with death, a meditation practice on death every morning can actually help support excavating the things in your subconscious and unconscious. I just said that, but I said it again differently. In other words, if you allowed yourself and made it a priority to have a relationship with death, the attachments to certain outcomes would rapidly be released. You would see the harmful nature of hanging on to wanting things to look a certain way, which would help free up some of the creative energy in yourself that will actually allow the things that you say you want to come. Are you starting to see how this is connected? If not, not a problem. I'm going to keep coming at this. It's going to be a little longer today because I'm excited. So I started studying the Katha Upanishad again last week. This is Vivekananda's favorite Upanishad. And Upanishad means eternal breath, Sanskrit word. So the Katha is a really sweet. The young man, Nachiketa, his father, I'm just going to try to sum this up. His father was basically doing a, what's that called? Can't think of it. He was bargaining. He wanted a boon, so he had to make a sacrifice, some kind of sacrifice. It's very, it's in every tradition. Supplication prayer. It's like, where you beg for something, you ask for something, and then you're asked to give something up for that to come. It's sort of it's more of like and this isn't a judgment of a negative. It's a lower kind of practice, supplication prayer or sacrificing in order to get your prayers fulfilled. Didn't say it's bad, it's just, it's what it is. So anyway, his dad was making one of these sacrifices to get a boon. And in the sacrifice, Nachiketa's watching this, and Nachiketa, being a truly pure-hearted soul, said, wait, Dad, you're being calculating in what you're sacrificing. You're only sacrificing things you kind of don't really treasure, like your cattle and, cattle and the kind of cattle he was sacrificing with the lame ones, the old ones. So Nachiketa came to his dad, and he says, thus reflecting, he came to his father and cried, Father, I too belong to thee. To whom givest thou me? Meaning he was his most prized favorite son. But his father did not answer because he knew the kid was calling him out like, you're not really sacrificing the most thing you could. But when Nachiketa asked this question again and again and again, he replied impatiently, thee I give to death. Then Nachiketa thought to himself, of my father's many sons and disciples, I am indeed the best, or at least the middle rank, not the worst. But what of good am I to be the king of death? Yet being determined to keep his father's word, he said, Father, do not repent thy vow. Consider it done. So he journeyed to the house of death. When he got there, death wasn't there, which is funny in itself. So he was a Brahmin. So it's like in the Indian things, a high caste. So when the king of death came home, he approached Nachiketa and welcomed him with courteous words. O Brahmin, he said, I salute thee. Thou art indeed a guest worthy of all reverence. Let, I pray thee, no harm befall me. 3 nights hast thou passed in my house and hast not received my hospitality. Ask of me, therefore, 3 boons, 1 for each night. Okay, so I'm just going to keep moving through this. And so the Lord of Death just really fell in love with Nachiketa because he's so earnest. And he said, you know what, I'm going to give you an extra boon because you're such a lovely young man. And so Nachiketa considered himself and said, when a man dies, there is this doubt. Some say he is, others say he is not. Taught by thee, I would know the truth. This is my 3rd wish. No, 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 replied Death. Even the gods were once puzzled by this mystery. Subtle indeed is this truth regarding it, not easy to understand. Choose thou some other boon. But Nachiketa, being Nachiketa, he was persistent. Thou sayest, O Death, that even the gods were once puzzled by this mystery, and it is not easy to understand. Surely there is no teacher better able to explain it than you, and there is no other boon equal to this. To which, trying Nachiketa again, the god replied, oh, for God's sake, ask for sons and grandsons and shall live 100 years. Ask for cattle, elephants, horses. Choose something for yourself. Don't ask me this question, essentially. But Nachiketa, this is sort of, there's also a subtle thing here about how to be a student of this path, like just persistent with God, right? But Nachiketa stood fast and said, these things endure only till tomorrow. O destroyer of life and the pleasures they give, wear out the senses. This is where Buddha jumps in with all desire causes suffering. But you can't avoid suffering, or can't avoid death. You can't avoid desire. You have to work with it consciously. The conscious part is knowing. O destroyer of life and the pleasures they give, wear out the senses. Meaning, you see, that's the situation. You have to live through the desires to understand this truth. Nachiketa says, keep thou horses and chariots, keep dance and song for thyself. How shall he desire wealth, O Death, who once has seen thy face? Death. No, only the boon that I have chosen, that only do I ask, having found out the society of the imperishable and the immortal, as in knowing thee I have done. Tell me, O king, the supreme secret regarding which men doubt. No other boon will I ask. Whereupon the king of death, well pleased at heart, began to teach Nachiketa the secret of immortality. I'm not going to read this whole Katha Upanishad. It's not that long, but there's things I want to share here too. Thou, O Nachiketa, having looked upon fleshly desires, delightful to the senses, hast renounced them all. Thou hast turned from the miry way wherein many a man wallows. Far from each other and leading to different ends are ignorance and knowledge. Thee, O Nachiketa, I regard as one who aspires after knowledge, for a multitude of pleasant objects were unable to tempt thee. Everybody has to go through this, right? All the heroes had to go through it. To the thoughtless youth, deceived by the vanity of earthly possessions, the path that leads to the eternal abode is not revealed. This world alone is real, there is no hereafter. Thinking thus, he falls again and again and again, birth after birth, into my jaws, death. Now don't get scared. It's not, there's nothing bad. So he goes on. He goes on. It's the idea of separation and the unknowingness that you go looking for all these earthly things, but the Atman, the thumb, it's as big as your thumb, resides in the heart of hearts. In the middle of the 1,000-petaled locus of the heart, you have 101 nerves, and there's one nerve that goes up to the brain, and then that's the exit place. That's thus meditation. I know I just threw out a big one. And he goes on. The self, whose symbol is Om, is the omniscient Lord. He is not born, he does not die, he is neither cause nor effect. This ancient one is unborn, eternal, imperishable through the body. Be destroyed, he is not killed. And that's why we have to keep living and doing and living through the experiences and the consequences of our desires to finally bottom out. But that's not a problem. But coming back to my whole premise this morning, do you see why meditating on death will help sober you up around your attachments to outcomes? These are deep. Okay. He who lacks discrimination, whose mind is unsteady and whose heart is impure, never reaches the goal, but is born again and again. Well, he eventually reaches it, but But he who has discrimination, whose mind is steady and whose heart is pure, reaches the goal, and having reached it, is born no more. Now, how do you purify your heart? Well, no. You have your desires. You realize that those desires are coming from a longing. The longing is from something more than the thing you want, but you have to honor the thing you want to actually learn the riddle. But as I said at the beginning, you have the thing you want. It's not manifesting. You've got to look and see what the subconscious and in some cases unconscious parts of you that are not reconciled with the thing you want. There's no contradiction. A great way to do that is to reflect on your death to help clear the channel, because those parts of your unconscious and subconscious are attached to something. Most likely some places where you didn't get your way in other lifetimes and or destroyed the thing that you say you want. So you have to live through the consequences of not attaining it until you liberate yourself from the thing. That's why meditation is so muy importante. You sit and it's like a clearing. You clear, you look, show me. I'm going to swing over. I'm going to read some Shakespeare because Shakespeare, I love it. You can get spiritual, we say, lessons from everything. God is speaking through everything if you allow it to come to you. And I have a deep regard for Shakespeare because he really speaks. He's always looking at death. He's always looking at death. This is from Richard II. Yeah, Richard II. This is Richard the King. Just listen to this. I mean, Shakespeare was magnificent at reflecting on death. It sounds like a little like Nachiketa. Let's talk of graves, of worms and epitaphs. Make dust our paper, and with rainy eyes write sorrow in the bosom of this earth. Let's choose executors and talk of wills, and not so for what can be bequeathed, save our deposited bodies to the ground, our lands, our lives, and all our Bullingbrookes, and nothing can we call our own but death, and that small model of the barren earth which serves as paste and cover to our bones. For God's sake, let us sit upon the ground and tell sad stories of the death of kings, how some have been disposed, some slain in war, some hunted by the ghosts they have disposed. By the way, we're all as king. Some poisoned by their wives, some sleeping killed, all murdered. For within the hollow crown that rounds the mortal temples of a king keeps death his court. And there the antic sits, death, scoffing his state and grinning at his pomp. That's what just death said, right? Keeps death his court, and there the antic sits, scoffing his state and grinning at his pomp, allowing him a breath, a little scene, to monoconize, be feared and kill with looks. Pomp and circumstance. Infusing him with self and vain conceit, as if the flesh, which walls about our life, were brass, impregnable, and humored thus, comes at last, and with a little pin bores through his castle wall. Farewell, king. It's death. Cover your heads and mock not flesh and blood. With solemn reverence, throw away respect, tradition, form, and ceremonious duty, for you have but mistook me all the while. I live with bread like you, feel want, taste grief, need friends, subjected thus. How can you say to me I'm the king? It's gorgeous, right? Now I'll read some Hamlet, because he was a young punk who was petulant and upset the world wasn't according to his program, right? Brilliant. Hamlet, after his mom hooks up with his uncle, right? This flipped him out about life and everything else, right? It was all about Hamlet. Sort of like a premillennial, you know. Oh, that this too sullied flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew, or that the everlasting had not fixed his canon against self-slaughter. Oh, God, God, how weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seemed to me all the uses of this world. And if he just went a little further, he would tap into what Nachiketa tapped into, but he got attached to things not being, he was right there, probably the next lifetime for Hamlet. Fie on it, fie, tis on this unweeded garden that grows to seed. He was asking the right questions, but got caught in his ego. Things rank and gross in nature possess it merely, that it should come to this. But 2 months dead, nay, not even as much as 2. His dad, so excellent a king that was to this hyper, to a stater, to so loving to my mother, he's writing about how he's saintly, that he may not beesteem the winds of heaven, visited her face too roughly. Heaven and earth, must I remember? Why she would hang on him as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on, and yet within a month, let me not think on it, frailty, thy name is woman. A little month, or ere those shoes were old, which she followed my father's body like Neo with all tears, why even she, O God, a beast that once discourse of reason, would have mourned longer. Married with my uncle, my father's brother, but no more like my uncle than I to Hercules. Within a month, ere yet the salt of most unrighteous tears had left her flushing on her galled eyes, she married. O most wicked speed to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets. It is not, nor cannot come to good, but break my heart, for I must hold my tongue. And I'll read that one last. Back to Nachiketa. I just want to read the last part of the Katha Upanishad. It's Katha. Thank you for your patience. I hope I trust this is inspiring something of you, or not. There are 2 selves. This is the Lord of Death. There are 2 selves, the apparent self and the real self. Of these, it is the real self, and he alone who must be felt as truly existing. To the man who has felt him as truly existing, he reveals his innermost nature. And that comes from doing your due diligence. The mortal in whose heart desire is dead becomes immortal. That is the goal of this Upanishad. The mortal in whose heart desire is dead becomes immortal. The mortal in whose heart the knots of ignorance are untied becomes immortal. These are the highest truths taught in the scriptures, and I would say every scripture. Radiating from the lotus of the heart, there are 101 nerves. One of these ascends towards the 1,000-petaled lotus in the brain. If when a man dies, his vital force passes upward and out through this nerve, he attains immortality. But if his vital force passes out through another nerve, he goes into another plane of moral existence and remains subject to birth and death. The Supreme Person of the size of a thumb, the innermost self, capital S, dwells forever in the hearts of all beings. As one draws towards the as one draws the pith from a reed, so must the aspirant after truth, with great perseverance, separate the self from the body, know the self to be pure and immortal, yea, pure and immortal. And the narrator ends, Nachiketa, having learned from the God this knowledge and the whole process of yoga, union, was freed from the impurities and from death, and was united with Brahman, God. Thus, it's a little different than God, but go with it. Thus will be with another also if he know the innermost self. Om, peace, peace, peace. If you meditate on death, you then start accessing and understanding vulnerability because you're not in self-protection. You don't need to be safe. You take more risks. You're more present. By the way, vulnerability exists in present time. Like that young woman I impersonated last week, she thought she was being vulnerable. She was avoiding vulnerability. And so was the young man too. When you meditate on death, it brings you right into vertical connection. And then when you look at your desires or the things you say you want, I'm going to leave you with a ... They'll appear differently. Lastly, this is Prospero, Shakespeare, his epilogue. Now my charms are all overthrown. At what strength I have mine own, which is most faint. Now 'tis true I must be here confined by you, or sent to Naples. Let me not, since I have my drunken got, and pardon the deceiver, dwell in this bare island by your spell. Speaking to God. But release me from my bands with the help of your good hands. Gentle breath of yours my sails must fill, or else my project fails. Which was to please. Now I want spirits to enforce, art to enchant, and my ending is despair, unless I be relieved by prayer, which pierces so that it assaults mercy itself and frees all faults. As you come from crimes, would pardon be, let your indulgence set me free. God bless you. Another day in paradise. That takes on a whole different meaning, right? Thank you. Have a good week.